Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunes from the Crypt. We have another very special episode in store today. Today's guest is a woman named Mary Kathy McDaniel, who is also known as MK McDaniel. She is the author of the #1 best-selling memoir, Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. Her book chronicles her harrowing near-death experience during a 3-week coma in 1999 and her journey of recovery and spiritual discovery. With her unique blend of candor and humor, Mary Kathy shares her profound insights into life, death, and everything in between, and I'm honored to have her with us today to discuss her extraordinary story and the wisdom that she's gained along the way. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, so she is I would describe you as a near-death all-star. You know, I saw that you were on the Next Level Soul podcast, and there's another video that I saw has like over 1 million views. So people are really resonating with your story, it seems like.
It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, as I like to ask all my guests, talk to me about your early life. Where did you grow up and go to school, and what was your family like?
My dad was in the Navy, so we did a lot of traveling. We started Midwest and then went to the East Coast, back to the Midwest, and then to the West Coast. And I've been there ever since because of a friend of mine had leukemia and needed some assistance. I left California, where I'd lived for many years, and came to Seattle. And that was 25 years ago, and I've never left the Seattle area.
I love it. And so from the little bit of research that I've done into you and your story, you were a Catholic, right?
I used to be. I'm a
Used to be.
recovering Catholic now. That's what we call ourselves.
Yeah. So how did your upbringing and previous role in Catholicism shape your initial beliefs about the afterlife, before your near-death experience?
Yeah, well, from a very early age, the Catholics are big on guilt and purgatory. And even though you're taught that Jesus died for your sins, you're still hampered at every corner that you're going to go to hell for one thing or another. And if it's not hell, it'll be purgatory. And that's like hell, but you get out. And as early as the Middle Ages, they were selling these indulgences, which were, actually sold, where like if you did a rosary, you got 300 days off. I think that was the quote on purgatory. So it's always in your mind. And so I think that when I went on the other side, I expected a purgatory and I got one. And
Ah,
after all these years, it's been 25 years, I can trace all the horrible events that I experienced there to actual things that happened to me on Earth. And so I believe I manifested that and I made my own hell. And I think that had I gone and stayed on the other side, I would not have had that experience. But I believe that I came back or was sent back just to share with people, skip the trip. Whatever your religion tells you about God being a negative, vindictive, judgmental
yeah.
entity is bullshit,
Mm.
basically. And it's not true. Once I did get into heaven, you can't even describe the love and the bliss and the joy that you experience. And um, it's very difficult to explain because our minds are so small. We can't imagine such immense love. But that's what all the NDEers will tell you. I
Oh
have
yeah.
never heard one say they had a judgment. Not one. They have a life review, and that's supposed to be kind of cool. I mean, it's like a movie, and you're the star, and you get to see every single thing that happened to you in your whole life. And then there's this thing where they turn it around, and then you get to experience what it was like to interact with you. So if you had a bad day and you're kind of snarky with somebody, you'll get to feel their
Oh,
pain when you made that awful comment. Uh, but it's not a judgment. It's just kind of an understanding. And in the same breath, I mean, if you've been really a nice, kind, generous person, you will get to feel that person's gratitude. So there's really nothing to be afraid of after death.
wow. I love the way you describe that. It's very fascinating to me. I had another very spiritual guy. He studied all the different religions. He's studied all of them, and he describes, yeah, the way he describes the death experience. He didn't have a near death experience, but the way he described it is similar to what you're saying. Is that it's almost like everything is mental. It's all in your head. It's like he described it as karmic illusion. So when you die, like that's the experience you have when you die. Like everything is very mental. Because you said when you were on the other side, there were things were manifesting like from the earthly realm, right? Is that what you were saying
Yeah, yeah, it
from your
was,
life?
yeah. It's weird, and because when I got back, I had no one to talk to about it. Nobody wanted to listen. Um, it was 10 years before I found the IANS group. That's the International Association of Near-Death Studies.
Hmm.
There's thousands of us in that group. And so between watching their videos and talking to them personally at meetings, to conferences, it finally dawned on me that well, I started a sharing group for the distressing near-death experiencers because we've kind of been swept under the carpet, even though up to 20% of people that have an NDE have some distressing aspect to them. So we were able to get together and put our heads together. And I gotta say that at a minimum of 85% of the people I've interacted with are Catholics.
Oh,
I mean, that kind of nails it down for me that um, what you have to be careful with any religion, and that's most of them,
yeah,
that will tell you if you don't follow us, if you don't do what we say, if you don't believe what we do, you're going to hell. I mean, oh, it's so sad.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you. So let's dive into the story. So can you share the events that led up to your NDE, and please go into detail on the whole experience?
I don't do the whole experience anymore. It's too traumatic for me because it happened in my soul and not in my brain, right? So when I'm telling it, I'm there. I'm 78 years old now, and after doing this for 25 years, I kind of I'll give you the highlights and
That
my
works.
imagination, but to actually drag somebody through it word by word, they'll have to buy the book. That's it's detailed there, and the book is not just about the experience; it's also my life before, during, and after the changes that affected that. What happened is initially my best friend found out he had leukemia and he needed a couple of caregivers. He was going to go to Seattle to a research hospital, and I volunteered, and so we got up there, and it was supposed to be like 2 or 3 months, but it drug on to almost 9 months of constant drama and trauma and him getting better and worse and no sleep and stress and all that stuff. So he died, and that broke my heart. And he was only 53. I was a couple months younger than him. And then by the time I got home, I had caught the flu, which was very much like COVID, which was going on in Southern California. I went down to a conference there and picked it up, brought it home, got so super sick. And by the time I got to one of the doc in the boxes, a friend drove me down there, no pulse. They put me in an ambulance, put me in ICU, didn't know how to treat it. Like again, like COVID, it was called ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is lung failure. It kills you. So the doctor says, we're really not sure how to do this. My daughter found something online, some sort of support group. They were using the numbers for the lung machine to try and keep me alive. They said, we're going to have to put you in a coma. We're going to try everything we can, but you got a 38% chance of making it. It's not good. So my family flew up from California real quick. They put a trach in my throat and they gave me something called white amnesia. The last thing the doctor told me was, you won't be able to remember a thing that happens. You're going to put your brain offline. You're just going to be just gone. You won't remember anything. So I said goodbye to everybody, and they gave me the drug, and I woke up. I don't know how long I was gone, but all of a sudden I was in what they call the void. I didn't know about this place until after I got back, but it's completely dark. It's no sound. It's not scary. You just don't know what the heck's going on or where you are. You're afraid to move because you don't know if you're standing or laying on something. So I just hung out and thought, well, this is just really super weird. And eventually, this reddish glow seemed to start. And I thought, oh, good, the sun's coming up. Maybe I'll find out where I am. But as it got lighter, it was like this foggy thing, and it was red and like a fire in the background, and then it got hot, and then I started hearing people moaning and shrieking in the background. And I said to myself, this is not good. I don't know where I am, but and this voice just boomed out of the fog. Do you know where you are? And it didn't take me long to say, hell. And then this voice just boomed, this maniacal laughter, and it scared the you know what out of me. And I just turned and ran into the darkness. After a while, I stopped because I was afraid I was going to step in a hole or run into a wall or something. And all of a sudden, the bright lights came up, and it was like movie scenes. It was a series of segments, and it would start unexpectedly and it would end unexpectedly, and it made me very not only nervous, but the danger, the feeling of such, where in the heck am I, what's going on. The first one I could it described was like a bombed out city. It's huge. I was in the middle of the city, and the tall buildings, the windows were blown out. There were people screaming and running. There were fires everywhere. And, just imagine yourself, boom, you're in a situation like that. It's very discombobulating. I do remember I tucked down behind some big concrete blocks that had fallen, and I, you don't know you're dead. The real you is your soul. So your body and your brain are just like your car. You get in your car, you drive where you're going, you get out of your car. The soul is the same thing. A body is our car. So who you really are is your soul. So when my soul was wandering around down there, I didn't think I was dead. I just thought I was in some strange situation, which I was. So between some spooky kind of guys that came to see if who I was, they didn't say much other than we're all alone here. And I thought, well, shoot, you guys don't look too friendly anyway. I tried to run and find a place that was more sheltered. At one point, something mechanical and creaking and huge passed by me, and I ducked back, and all I could see was its shadow. But I thought, oh my gosh, maybe it's aliens. Maybe that Earth's been attacked. I really didn't know. But trying to get out of there, I did try and climb up and get to maybe inside a building. Maybe people would be there, but I fell backwards. And as I did, I thought, oh, this is going to hurt. And the lights went out, and then the lights came back up again. And I found again myself in another place with other characters, and there were demons. There's no other word for it, like Bigfoot, nasty guys. And they would, this one told me I had a job to do, and if I wanted to get out, all I had to do was finish the job. And I knew he was lying, but I thought, I've got to get out of here. So no matter what they suggested, I would try it, but generally it was disgusting or hurtful or just against everything I believed in. And so I would refuse to do it. I'd say, no, I'm not going to do it. And then they'd threaten me with it's going to get worse. And that's part of the reason I named the memoir Misfit in Hell, because no matter what they told me to do, I wouldn't do it. Between scenarios, there was this endless road that just seemed to go, no, there's no directions down there, folks. So it just went to the left or the right. And there's no time. So it's always now. You never seem to get anywhere. It's odd. There's no moon, stars, all that stuff. So the only light was from this reddish glow on the horizon. No plants, nothing to break up the monotony, just dirt and rocks. It's like being on the moon or something. But on the road, I felt at least that I could look 360 around me to see if one of these demon characters was sneaking up on me. I felt as probably as safe as I could be on that road. And I just kept going. I thought there's got to be a way out of here. This is ridiculous. Um, a weird thing that happened, and it only happens occasionally. I've not really heard of more than one or two people that see living people. I had two relatives I saw down there, and I interacted with both of them, and they were both rude and nasty to me, and I couldn't understand why. When I got back, it dawned on me that I had to give them both messages about that attitude or whatever they were involved with that was just not good for them. And that's really difficult. Go up to somebody that you know well and say, I was in hell and I saw you and I've got to give you this message. A, they think you're nuts, and B, they don't want a message from hell. And so the first lady I told, she was kind of a critical woman, kind of scary. She was sharp-tongued and very negative, and I had to tell her, you got to start lightening up on people and be a little more positive. This is just not a. And she pretty much told me where to go. That was the end of that relationship. So the other person I had seen was. She had lost herself. She was in a relationship, and in hell, this person was just making her not his slave, but he was using her to promote his own importance, bring his, you know, it was she was really losing. She was such a great, energetic person, and in real life, she was really dying, and just from sadness. So when I told her what was going on that I saw, and I told her she really needed to get out of that relationship, and she told me to mind my own business. But it was like, I think it was about a year or two later, she came to me at a Christmas party and handed me a glass of wine and said, okay, okay, I need to hear that thing you told me before because it was true. And I'm out of that relationship now and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
myself again. And I'm so glad if you hadn't said something, I wouldn't really have had the permission to do what I had to do. So, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Uh, Back to the road and the zombies and the it was hell. What can I say? But a self-made one. But at the time, and it still is, distressing and awful and hurtful and scary and all that. And so I was starting to kind of lose hope. I had been there what felt like a couple of years, and I was beginning to think, maybe I'm not getting out of here. This is just, I didn't really understand where I was. So at the very final scenario, when I didn't know it was going to be the final one, I was still being a brat, and I had asked the demon lady who had us all in this shack waiting for customers why today was so particularly hideous. And she says, well, it's Christmas on Earth, and that's always the worst day in hell. And that's when it dawned on me what had happened and where I was. And again, I knew I didn't belong here. This is just crazy. And so I started singing a Christmas carol, and that ticked her off. And she came at me with a club. She was going to beat the crap out of me. And I just closed my eyes because every time I did, I'd just be in another place. If this was endless, I just want to get out of here. But this time it was different. There was this bright light, but it was a warm light. It was bliss, it was joy, it was love, it was indescribably delicious, and all the memories of anything I'd ever experienced were just gone and just enveloped in this love and joy. Is there's just no words for it. Most people that have experienced say is ineffable. There are no words. The joy and I saw my friend who had died the month before, and he had been a mess. You die of leukemia. It's not pretty. I'm telling you, you're all purple and your hair falls out and swollen and all. And he looked great. And I couldn't believe it. And I was so happy to see him. And he looked happy to see me. And then it took me a couple seconds and I thought, oh, he doesn't know he's dead. And he started laughing. And I thought, oh, I didn't say that out loud. And then it dawned on me. I thought, oh my goodness, that was telepathic, and he's dead. And so I'm dead. And this is like the best news ever. I'm so excited. I just wanted to go give him a hug and I said, show me around. What are we doing standing here, you know? And then I remember seeing a book on a table, huge book. And I thought, wait a minute, he was showing me something in that book. And I can't remember what it was. And I says, all I could remember was I said, oh no, that's going to be too hard. I want to stay here with you. But he came forward and said, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And that was just not what I wanted to hear. And I said, no, no, I'm not going. No, I'm staying here, you know. Boom, the lights go out, and the lights come up. And now there's people roaming around in front of me. The lights are too bright, it's too warm. And I thought, oh my, I'm back in hell. And then my daughter turns around and says, Mom's back. And I thought, what's going on? I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. And there's telling me you've been in a coma for almost 3 weeks. We thought we'd lost you. And they're all talking at once. You can see how upsetting this still is. Um, Anyway, I was a mess, and it took me. I'd been in ICU for 3 weeks, and I had another week there, and then had to go to a physical rehab facility because I weighed 86 pounds and I had no muscle mass or muscle memory. I was like an infant. I had to learn how to do everything all over again, and um, and then to go home and nobody would listen to me, and so I just suffered. And it took 10 years to find ions, and that was a blessing. The bad news was that when I went to the meetings, everybody always had these lovely adventures in heaven, and I heard nobody that had my story. And that made me distressed. And eventually, I did start to hear and read mostly. That was before the podcasts. And so I found the books of, maybe three people that had it, Howard Storm and Betty Eddy. Was another one. Oh, and Nancy Evans Bush. She saved my life. We became friends later. About but they didn't really understand why it had happened to them either. So what I've been doing the last 15 years is kind of rooting out people that have had the distressing ones. I've got a distressing sharing group on the IONS format. We meet once a month, and it's just so awesome to have somebody show up and be able to tell their story and say, I've not told this to anybody, and how safe and
Oh yeah.
relieved they are to be able to finally shed
Share.
it.
Yeah.
And so what I've done with my research and other people's is to determine why that happened. And for we can come back to, like I say, this is what we were taught, and we believed it and manifested it. And we were sent back to tell people, quit believing that stuff. Heaven and the afterlife are indescribably wonderful. There's no judgment. There's just an understanding of a life that I believe we plan. That's what I've been told. You plan your life. You come down here with your soulmates, and you want to learn things, or you want to work things out that you didn't understand in a previous incarnation, and then you go home and be with your buds again until you decide to go somewhere else.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, man. That there's so much to unpack there. I guess first thing I would like to ask you is, 3 weeks, that's a long time to be in a coma. Uh, do you know by chance, like on average, like at what point do the doctors, pull the plug? Like,
Well, the reason they call it near-death experience is that you don't need to be dead. Comas count.
yeah,
Your 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 soul kind of gets loose on you when your brain's offline. You can kind of travel. I mean, people do that with transcendental meditation and stuff. People can leave their bodies uh, pretty much on command if you learn how to do it. Um, so uh, they just told my folks she's not going to make it. Come say your goodbyes. And that must have been when I took off. Got permission, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Because like I said, I'm just wondering. I could only imagine, like at 3 weeks, a month, it starts being a couple of months. Like at some point, the doctors, the nurses are like, like she's not gonna make it. Like let's just pull the plug. So
Pull the plug.
yeah, wow. So that's a long time to be in a coma, and
Oh,
so
that's why I lost so much weight. They put
yeah,
you on a intubation and fill you with Ensure, and that certainly doesn't put meat on your bones.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
I'd also like to ask you, like growing up in your life, did you struggle with negative thoughts? Did you struggle with the fear of the church?
sure.
Yeah. So
That's
that
what they wanted. They
yeah.
wanted you scared. I mean, I always went to Catholic schools, had the nuns, they had the rulers. If you didn't do what you're supposed to, you got your knuckles wrapped or you stood in the closet facing the coats or and as you got older, you had to go to confession probably every Friday night. And then
Wow.
Saturday, if you went out and did anything at all, you're back on next Friday. I mean, it was just you rotated the guilt. And,
Yeah.
and most of that stuff was just teenage silly stuff. And then you grow up and you still got that guilt. Oh, crud, I shouldn't have said that nasty thing to
Hmm.
my mother. Oh, I'll pay for that. It's an awful way to grow
Yeah.
up. And when I got back, I said, there's got to be another way to do this. And I really prayed for a guidance. No more thou shalt nots, and I got the message there. They came back to me. You got to be loving and kind, merciful and forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non judgmental, and useful. And if you can't remember all of that, just settle on loving and kind.
Oh
And
yeah.
your whole life changes.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So I can only imagine that you probably have a lot of skeptics, right? Or they hear your story and they're like, "Man, that was a wild story. She's crazy. Like, what is she talking about?" But I would like to tell the listeners, like, I don't know, when I hear your story, it's like how detailed you are. Like how could you be so detailed?
After 25 years, because it's
Yeah,
still there.
yeah.
It's not a dream. It's not hallucination. It's not drugs. The doctor told me I would be physically unable to remember anything. Um, yeah, there's people that this scares because they're either in the same situation I was and they're afraid to get out. Um, there's the atheist, which I love that. I love talking to atheists because I just say, you are in for such a nice surprise. You just think you're going to die and it's black and it's over, but oh man, it's a party. It's going to be great. I was sent back for the people I need to talk to, and the ones that aren't going to listen. That's not my problem. I'm just supposed to share this story. That's all.
Yeah, I love how you bring up the atheist. I'm on my own spiritual journey, especially over the past few years. And growing up, I was never brought up religious. I was open to the idea. Did I know? I wasn't sure. Like maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. I was open. So I wasn't an atheist. I was open. But now, as I go along my journey, yeah, I would love to just tell an atheist, like if they're like, yeah, I don't believe in God. I would just like to look at them and be like, so you don't believe in yourself? Like you don't, take a look in the mirror. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that group that you mentioned, the International Association of Near-Death Studies, sounds like it's been a great group for you to kind of navigate the everything that you went through. I'd like to ask you, in that group, there seems to be some common themes among near-death experiencers, right? Like a lot of them see like a white light, and different things, or a garden. What are some of the common themes that you're noticing?
Um, the most common is the joy and the love. Um, that's what sticks with you. The fact that we're eternal, that we have purpose. Um, it changes everything, A, you're not afraid to die anymore, and B, you have this sense of purpose and usefulness. That I saw something the other day that says usefulness is the greatest joy of life, and it's true. It's got to be outside of you. You take that love and share it, and that's huge. And to live without fear. And if I think one of the greatest things is I don't feel like a victim anymore. In my life earlier, when things would happen to me, you crash your car, I had a baby that died, a terrible death. All those things I blamed on God. Why did this happen to me? Why do you do this to me? But if knowing that I plan my life for certain good reasons and everybody else in it, we're all on the same page playing this life. It's like a play. We wrote the script, and so now I think, okay, this happened. Like recently, I was supposed to go to Iceland for my birthday. I looked for that forward to that trip for a year, and at the last 2 days before, my travel companion ended up in the hospital. And I had to cancel everything. And I thought, gosh darn it. And then I thought, no, no, you planned it this way. It's just relax. And the day I was supposed to go, they had a horrible, huge snowstorm over the entire Iceland, and people driving their cars couldn't see a thing. So, and it cleared up the day I would have come home. So I'm thinking, okay, I would have spent all that time, money, and everything and not seen a thing. So I was pretty smart to plan it and then cancel it. Again, I don't blame anybody, and I think I'm a lot easier on other people too because I know they're on their journey.
Oh
They've
yeah.
got certain things going on. Um, I think we have a lot of soulmates, and I've heard that, you have to get your plan approved, before you come down. And you've always got free will. Always. That's number one. You've got free will. If you get down here, we get the mind wipe when we come back down here and we forget the plan. But it's still operating. But if we get to a point where we go, this just, I don't think so. You can choose to say you won't do that. You may have to come back and do it again because you wanted to learn that. But your other soulmates are involved in this too. So it's like, I don't know, the matrix where all these different ways can happen if you say yes here and no there. But I believe like you and I right now, we knew each other up
Yeah.
there and we said, okay, this incarnation, I'm going to be really busy, but let's get together for an hour. And here we are,
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as coincidence. I think it's all planned.
Yeah.
So it makes life a lot more fun.
Yeah, it makes life a lot more freeing, right? Like, just don't take it so seriously. How many people go throughout their lives and you're just so serious all the time? It's like lighten up. It makes it a lot easier. I guess I'll share a quick story with you as well. My life has been just a very mystical, magical life. So many things, synchronicities and car crashes where it was like a horrible car crash and I came out completely fine. Essentially what happened was in my 20s, and then I got sober, and then I went to a therapist, and then are you familiar with ayahuasca?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's wild
I
stuff.
also had a death experience, and
Yeah.
so now you're telling me, so that place is called the Void. I didn't know what to call it. I was there. I was in a
Oh,
void. It was just black. There was no noise, nothing, and I was like, okay, oh, like I'm here, because in the experience when you take the ayahuasca, the shaman was telling all of us like, hey, like if you feel like you're gonna die, like go towards that experience. Don't be afraid of it. And so I just said, you know what? He knows best, right? So I listened to his advice and the medicine. It put me in a fetal position, and I was seeing all kinds of intense, visuals, patterns, colors, and it put me in the fetal position. Like it took control of my body, and I had that experience of dying, and I was in that void. And it's interesting that you just mentioned it, and I've heard it over and over where they say that you choose your life, right? And there was an experience there when I was in that void. I was kind of asking questions like, what did I ask? it was almost, yeah, like telepathic. It was like I was asking different questions and a voice, I think it was my own voice, whether that's my higher self or whatever. But the one message I definitely took out of it was, it was like, look, like you chose this life. Like, stop taking it so seriously. Like, this life is a blessing. Like, go back, live your purpose, like, but yeah, the main message I got was like you chose this life, and it's funny that you bring that up, and we hear that more and more, right? Like we chose this life. The
Right,
whole purpose is to learn lessons, and so I'm so thankful to have you on the show so we can let people know that, right?
right,
Yeah,
right. Life is not happening to you. There's nobody to blame but yourself,
yeah.
and it's for a good reason. The thing that I've learned that I think that's most important is when something quote horrible happens to you, you now have this understanding of a car crash or mine losing this child, but that gives you empathy. So when someone else you run across is freaking out and nobody understands them, they can come to you and you have this empathy, this knowing that is so comforting to that person. It can help them get through that bad time, just knowing you understand.
Oh man, yeah, that's so beautiful, yeah, it reminds me of the quote, your mess is your message. So your mess is your message. So that's your message now. So and you're like in your death experience, they said, no, you have too much to do. You got to go back. So now you're getting on these podcasts and you're sharing your message. And what impact is that going to have on the world? It's really beautiful.
It's wonderful. It makes your life so worth living, and what you're doing is facilitating that.
Yeah.
So without, COVID was a huge blessing because everybody was stuck in their house. I had to write a book. I had nothing else to do. And then you guys, come up with the podcast. The first time somebody, contacted me, and it was almost 4 years ago to the day. Christy Salisbury in New Zealand. And she emailed me and said, I'd like you on my podcast. And I said, I can't afford to go to New Zealand. And she said, no, no, no. It's a Zoom thing. And I was just amazed. And that for me, I've been, like I say, about 150 of them now in the last 4 years.
Oh wow.
Um, but it's all because people like you got the message, you know,
Yeah, I love that.
made it possible.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
yeah. So, what advice would you give to others who are struggling to reconcile their religious beliefs with personal spiritual experiences?
Listen to your personal spiritual experiences. Um, we all need permission to turn our backs or rethink religious doctrine that was pounded into us. We need to really let our spirits breathe and listen to people who've had near death experiences and listen to that joy and give yourself the freedom to explore that because God is all loving and all forgiving, period.
Yeah.
Would never condemn anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, as I go along my journey, I get so mind blown by the concept of eternity. Like our soul, like we are eternal, and we just keep incarnating over and over, learning different, like you said, different plays, different storylines, different movies. Because in this third dimension reality, it's like everything is about time. You got the clock on my computer, on my phone. We wear watches. You got to clock in and clock out of your job. Everything's about time, right? So we're so
Right.
obsessed with time, but it's like so it's hard to imagine eternity. Like it's fascinating, man.
It really is. Our little
Yeah,
brains can't comprehend that. And
yeah,
there's a reason for it. And I've been told often that Earth is the toughest gig.
yeah.
This is the
I've heard
densest,
that.
hardest, most difficult. This is only for the brave souls.
Oh
You have to
yeah.
be super brave or crazy. I'm not sure which to come down here. And we don't have to come back here again. I understand that, there's billions of universes out there. There's got to be lots of life out there. And
Yeah,
probably going to be pretty fascinating. And eternity is going to be fun. We'll go
yeah,
different places, learn different things, be with, our soulmates in different incarnations. How fun is that?
yeah,
Yeah. And like you
yeah,
say, lighten up. It's
yeah.
all good.
It's
It's
all
all
good.
good.
It's all good. Yeah. after my spiritual awakening, yeah, like I go out in nature and I'm always just connecting with nature and the sun and just showing so much gratitude. And the one thing I do is like, yeah, like since I've been in that void, I know what that is like. Let me tell the listeners, like, you don't want to be there. Like, you don't want to be stuck there. Like, this reality, like, sure, there's pain and there's struggle, but it's so beautiful. Like, it really is. Like, it's the experience. All these experiences are a gift. They're a blessing. Just the simple thing of this, having a conversation, having a nice meal, enjoying a nice sunset, enjoying a nice song. All these things are blessings, and we forget that. You
Right,
know? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
good. You're
Yeah.
very advanced for your age, I'll tell you that.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, definitely. It's been these past few years after my awakening, and my last episode. Actually, I had a spiritual awakening coach, and to touch on your point, she said, something similar. She said, if you incarnate in this earthly realm, that you've at least passed 40% of your soul lessons.
Wow, I love
So,
that.
yeah. So if you're here, chances are you've passed at least 40. You know,
Oh,
and
wow.
if you're having a spiritual awakening, you're probably closer on like the 70%, and up around there. So
Good.
yeah, so like
That makes me feel really good. I love that statistic.
yeah, yeah. I remember growing up too how I was just so afraid of death, right? Like, oh, I want to live forever, but it's like in this life I'm like, you know what, one life's enough, but now I'm learning, like, we just do it over and over again, just learn different things. So like you said, lighten up. So So, what do you believe are the most common misconceptions about NDEs, and how do you address these in your book?
Um, Common misconceptions. They have to do with the other person, not it's not my misconception. Um, we're all on different levels, and being non-judgmental, I think, is really important for us, not to feel holier than thou or smug or any of that, because they're just on a different part of their journey. And I do stay away now from like the Bible Belt, because it's very inflammatory to say that I don't really believe in the Bible anymore. I mean, I think of it as a history book and a book of metaphors, and
Yeah.
but that men were too involved with it, and it's
Oh yeah.
evolved way past what it was initially intended for. So I'm not telling people they're wrong. I'm just saying that's not where I am. So I don't want to be on a program where I had literally 3,000 people, condemning me back to hell, which they can't do. But it's not. I don't want to upset anybody. If in this incarnation, that's what they've chosen to do, that's the path they can be on. But if they're people like myself who are on the fence, or was ready like you for a little update, a little freshen thing up in our spiritual lives, then fine. They'll hear me, and they'll be okay with that. But I don't want to bug anybody.
Yeah. So how did you overcome, the emotional trauma from both your NDE and your earlier life experiences?
I don't. You just incorporate it. You just look at it from a different direction. And now I've got that different direction. Being a human, that trauma is still in my body and mind
Oh
somewhere.
yeah.
And that's just the way it goes when you choose to become a human. Um, it's, it's lighter now, of course, and I don't take it so seriously. Whereas before, everything can be life and death, and I'm just not getting a promotion at your job, it's the end of the world, or you break up with somebody that you love, and oh, you don't want to live anymore. I mean, that all kind of a soul kind of matures, and when you can see the big picture, you laugh a lot more.
I love it. I love that you have such positivity out of it. That's amazing. I'm curious, have you explored your past lives, or would you be open to exploring your past lives?
I've done that at least once, and I had another one that was scheduled, but it got interrupted. So yes, I think that's fascinating. Um, I went all the way back to being a bug, for crying out
Are
loud,
you
on a
serious?
distant planet. And it was so funny. I was just this little thing, and I could see the planet. It was all mostly rocks. And then I found I got in. It was hot, so I whatever I was, I went inside, and I was found a little drop of water, and I was just happy. And all of a sudden, this huge spider reaches up and comes right at me, and I guess it ate me. And I thought when I woke
Oh
up,
my
I was
God.
just terrified. And I thought that's where I get my arachnophobia. I
Oh my.
hate spiders. I mean, I don't put me in a room with a spider. And now I know one ate me, for crying out loud. But
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
you, again, you got to laugh. And some people say, well, that's crazy. Well, it wasn't crazy to me. I felt it, man. Um, so yeah, I think that's important. It's valuable. I can't wait to do it again.
So how did that go down? Did they put you under hypnosis and you kind of how did
Yeah,
that
you can do it online. I mean, they can. That's how I did it.
yeah,
You get in a comfy place in your bed, and it's quiet, and they, the voice. They have their voice that takes you deeper, deeper, deeper down.
yeah.
Down. So it's a hypnotism thing. Um, it's it's very interesting. I did it as a group. One time I did it was a podcast kind of thing, except you signed up and I don't know, you had 30 people all over the world in on the floor uh, going through this. And that was interesting. Uh, yeah, complex souls. We're old, you
Yeah,
know.
wow.
We've got a lot of experiences. It's fascinating.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I completely forgot that. Dan, you could be born into a life as a bug or a tree or something. I thought we'd
Yeah,
always be like, intelligent,
no,
hominids or whatever. But yeah,
spirit is everything. I mean, it's
yeah,
energy. Spirit is energy, and we're all just held together with molecules
yeah.
um, until the energy leaves. And then,
So when you had that experience of being a bug, was it like a dream or was it like super realistic, like your NDE, or how was it?
yeah, I didn't know I was a bug. I was just like, it's like, you're in your soul, and you're looking out whatever eyes or things that I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a
Oh,
person. I thought it was a person, like me, but I couldn't figure out how I crawled up that rock. And I thought, well, maybe on that planet, people crawl on rocks, and then found the water, and then, but when I saw that spider, it was so huge, and I thought, oh, and he ate me. I thought, oh my God.
oh
Um,
wow.
I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm glad to be out of that incarnation.
Oh yeah.
It didn't last very long.
Oh
Probably
wow.
didn't pick to go back there. Well, who knows what we want to experience? And maybe, if we have a gazillion experiences and lifetimes in an eternity, we're going to want to try all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So, yeah, I'm glad that you shared that story. I didn't know you explored your past lives. That's awesome. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, what message do you hope readers take away from your memoir?
To lighten up, and it's all good, and God is all loving and forgiving. There's nothing to fear. I mean, sure, this earth incarnation is a tough one, but if you just remember that, yeah, you are a brave soul, and it's all going to end up happily ever after when you get out of here. So enjoy the ride and be loving and kind. That we all need to do that. Change
Yeah,
the world. If everybody's loving and kind, it's going to work.
yeah, I love that. So, how do you see your purpose or mission in life now compared to your life before the NDE?
Before the NDE, it was all about me, and trying to get to heaven someday, because I was scared to die anyway, and life sucks, and you die and all that stuff. Now it's all good. It changes everything. It really does. For the better. I
Yeah.
don't suggest people go out and die for the experience of it. You will get it one way or the other, but to trust. I People go listen to 100 of these NDEs. I mean, we can't all be wrong. None of us got together before we told these stories. I mean, if you're in India, for crying out loud, you're a Hindi with a completely different religion, and you come up with the same experience. It's too coincidental.
Oh,
People
yeah.
be made up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of closing it out, so are there any future projects or endeavors that you're currently working on?
I'm continuing to grow the distressing near death group, so I can comb these people out of the crowd, and because we feel so left out and wrong, I want them to be incorporated and find the joy that I had.
I love that. Yeah. So that's now your mission in life. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of closing it out, can you send the listeners out there a final message of love and healing, to the ones who might be struggling out there?
Yeah, God is all loving and forgiving. There's nothing to worry about. Just work on being loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, big one, non-judgmental, bigger one, and you'll just be fine and find your purpose.
I love that. So simple, right? So, all right. So thank you,
You're
Kathy,
very
for,
welcome. It was so nice to meet you and be on your show. Keep up the
yeah,
good work, okay?
yeah. Thank you for meeting with me. So you just feel free to plug your information, where people can find you and your book, and I'll also add it to the description of the video.
Okay, thank you. And then go ahead and send me a link when it's up so I can put it on my social media. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.